Welcome to the Future of Work podcast. We explore the trends, ideas, and leadership challenges shaping the future of organizations, work, and society. I'm Dr. Mona Mustafa, and I'm joined by my co-host, Dr. Vic Benuena. Today, we're discussing the future of higher education, driving innovation, advancing research, and empowering student success. Now, around the world, higher education is at a turning point. Faced with financial pressures, technological disruption, shifting student expectations, growing scrutiny of graduate outcomes, increasing global competition, and rising demands for societal impact, universities are confronting fundamental questions about their future. Can universities continue to deliver on their promise of shaping future leaders, advancing knowledge, and driving societal progress? Are institutions adapting quickly enough to meet the expectations of students, employers, and society? And what will higher education need to look like if it is to thrive in an increasingly digital, global, and uncertain world? To help us explore the future of higher education, we are truly honored to welcome Professor Ghassan Awad, Chancellor of Abu Dhabi University, and one of the most influential voices in global higher education today. Over a distinguished career spanning leadership roles across the United Kingdom, Kuwait, Bahrain, and the United Arab Emirates, he has led transformational change, driven research excellence, championed innovation, and helped shape the strategic vision of universities operating in an increasingly complex and interconnected world. Professor Awad, welcome to the Future of Work podcast. It's a true pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you, Dr. Mona and Dr. Vic, for the kind invitation and the nice introduction. I did not recognize myself.
Thank you, Professor Awad. Before we discuss the future of higher education, we really would love to learn more about the person behind these leadership roles. A very impressive career. Could you take us through your journey from your early days in academia to becoming Chancellor of Abu Dhabi University and tell us what inspired you to pursue a career in higher education?
Thank you, Dr. Mona, for the question. And my name is Ghassan Awad. I was born in Lebanon, in a very small village in the mountains of Lebanon. Then I studied for a bachelor degree in civil engineering at Beirut Arab University. I worked for 2 years as site engineers, building schools, hospitals, etc., in the south of Lebanon, sponsored by UNICEF. And then I got a scholarship from Hariri Foundation to study for a master's and PhD in the UK. I did that at Loughborough University. And then I moved to Salford University. I spent 20 years there. I started as a research fellow. When I left, I was Pro-Vice Chancellor for Research and Innovation and Dean of the College of Science and Technology. I came to the Middle East. I was president of University of Wollongong, Dubai. Then went to Kuwait. I was vice president for academic affairs at Gulf University for Science and Technology. Then I went to Bahrain. I was president of Applied Science University for almost 8.5 years. And then joined Abu Dhabi University 3.5 years ago as Chancellor of the university.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction. Before we sort of talk about the higher education itself, let's turn our attention to the students. When we were preparing for this podcast, you mentioned that we really should think about our students, the challenges they're going through, and the struggles. What advice would you give to students today and future students entering higher education?
Very interesting question, Dr. Mona, once again. I think we're dealing with generations, Gen Z students. The majority of our students would have been born between 1997 and 2012. And the next generation of students will be Generation Alpha. If you look at the characteristics of these students, They are digital natives. They are entrepreneurial in their thinking, can look at their loyalty, see how they behave. But at the same time, they have suffered badly because of they have lived COVID-19, they have lived the conflict in the Middle East now. They are worried about AI and digital transformation. They're worried about the environment, the climate change, and so on. So I think we are dealing with students who may be worried about mental health. There are some reports which says around 80% students are worried about mental health. So we have to give them the best support ever. And those students are very ambitious. They're very capable. They are different from our generation. My generation, when I was studying at the university, people used to ask me, "What's your IQ?" So if my IQ is high, that's it. I'm going to succeed in life. It's not the case anymore. You may come across students who have achieved a GPA of 4, a very high IQ, but they don't have the right skills. And the right skills will drive, I think, the market in the future. We know from employers, they are asking for the right skills from graduates. So we want graduates who are capable, they can manage, they can lead, they can communicate properly, they can analyze information, they have critical thinking, and so on. So I've managed to identify 21 types of intelligence now, in addition to the IQ, where students will need the digital intelligence, cultural intelligence, emotional intelligence, social intelligence, environmental intelligence, media intelligence, charisma intelligence, and so on. So we have to produce graduates who can embrace these skills in order to support them and enable them to enter the marketplace. It's a very, very competitive marketplace. Nobody knows what new jobs will appear and whether some existing jobs will disappear. So we will need to make sure that our students are taught how to learn, because they have to learn new jobs, they have to learn new skills, they have to learn new techniques. So it's really, really important for us to look at this generation, support them, have empathy for them. In my case, I have an open door policy here. Students have access to the chancellor office. They tell me about their achievements. And one thing about them, they are just ambitious and they are courageous and they are brave. When you think about it, when I was their age, I wouldn't dare standing in front of a big audience presenting a paper or talking to my professor. And now you can see them at the age of 18, 19. They stand in front of a very big audience. They present with confidence. Sometimes they sound like keynote speakers or full professors. So the different generation, different aspirations, different value system, different ambitions, and so on. So we need to take all of these into consideration.
So empathetic is key, being always there to support them. I was quite surprised to read some of the latest studies and statistics and reports in higher education about hiring the young generation that you just spoke about. According to this latest study, hiring managers mentioned that recent college grads are unprepared for the workforce, cannot handle the workload, and are unprofessional. In fact, Professor Awad, 75% of companies reported that some or all of their recent grads they hired were unsatisfactory. 6 in 10 companies fired a recent college graduate in the same year. 9 out of 10 managers say recent college graduates should undergo etiquette training. And 1 in 6 hiring managers say they are hesitant to hire from this cohort. They're talking about the generation born from 1997 to around 2012. This was from the intelligent.com. So it made me really wonder if employers are increasingly dissatisfied with recent graduates around the world. And some of them are even reconsidering hiring from this cohort. Does higher education need to place a greater emphasis on workplace readiness, professionalism, and real-world experience alongside academic achievement. So what can we do to bridge this gap? Because honestly, I was quite surprised to read these figures, Professor. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's very interesting observation, and I think this is a universal problem. When you look at the academic mind in general, when you look at faculty and in academic staff in universities, of course they are teaching students. Some of them didn't have the industry experience to pass it to our students. They may be very busy with research and other KPIs. I'm really pleased that the Ministry of Higher Education, Scientific Research and Commission for Academic Accreditation in the UAE has introduced the outcome-based evaluation framework, which has 6 pillars,
Yes.
and it's very much student-centered. The first pillar talks about employment rate, which has a weighting of 25%, learning outcomes 25%, collaboration with industry 20%. And it's interesting, collaboration with industry is all about getting the industry involved in curriculum development and delivery, supporting internships, guest lecturing, and so on. So it's very, very important for us to get the industry engagement. And this didn't happen that much before. Now it's been regulated, right? Of course, in addition to the other pillars like research, which has 15%, reputation, 10%, and community engagement, 5%. So this new framework is very much student-centered. It's talking about the employability of students, making sure that we're producing graduates who are capable to enter the marketplace, equipped with the right skills, especially AI and digital skills. So employers, I think, will start to have a different maybe perception about graduates. At least I'm talking about my experience in the UAE now, even though it's a universal problem, as I mentioned to you before. Employers expect to see in graduates the right skills. For me, the degree itself represents maybe 30 to 50% of the full package. The other 50% is related to maybe the soft skills. They can develop the bargaining skills, research skills, communication skills, and so on. So I think it's really important for us to embrace a different approach in academia and making sure that we are here to produce students who can find jobs. At the end of the day, parents want their kids to find jobs, not to study for 3, 4 years. But I think the whole learning model will be completely different in the future. I think future learners will be completely different because of the nature, they are digital natives and so on. So I think you will see more micro-credentials, accumulated credits. Students may decide they want to finish in 10 years' time, the degree, not in 3 or 4 years. They may set up their own businesses at a very young age, 18, 20. But I keep telling our students at Abu Dhabi University and across the globe that a degree is your passport to the world. The skills you develop are the visas, which will take you places. And it's so important for us to embrace a different approach to teaching and learning. I don't know how universities and colleges would look like in the future. There will be more of hybrid learning, online learning. People talk about students enjoying the campus life. This generation enjoy their digital friends and going to the gym maybe. They want to study in the evening and sleep during the day. So when we understand this generation of learners, then we'll be able to equip them with the right skills where employers will be very happy.
Like this idea of exploring our future learners, and we can unpack that later in our conversation. Thank you, Professor, for this. I will now maybe ask Dr. Vic a question, and perhaps then ask the same question to Professor Wad. Dr. Vic, we know that AI is projected to replace many jobs. In fact, according to the World Economic Forum, they reported that AI will replace 92 million jobs. On the other hand, it reported that 270 million new ones will be created by 2030. So if we think about this, how should higher education institutions rethink their curricula, teaching methods, industry partnerships to really equip students with the skills needed for these emerging opportunities in AI-driven sectors, such as healthcare, education, manufacturing, and so on? What's your thought on that, Dr. Vic?
Thanks for that question. We are in a very challenging times. The AI came very rapidly and is growing exponentially every day. So that becomes a challenge for all the stakeholders in society, including academic institutions, students, employers, and government. One of the ways that we can tackle this in our classrooms is ensure that we fully understand the gravity of the issue, particularly what the AI capabilities can be. We also need to be able to understand what the industry is in need of. And then we can bring that knowledge from industry players into our classroom. But very, very importantly, and I know you and I do this quite a lot, is to ensure that we take the students to the industries, the different organizations, to see what it is like to work in those organizations. But whilst I allude to the fact that AI is a threat to the labor market in future, there are also mixed findings about whether AI is very capable of doing all the works that we've been doing before. There's a case in point where Klarna, which is an organization, I believe, works in the financial industry, fired over 700 employees in the hope that they can replace them with AI. Those people who understand economics, this is the technical substitution of labor with capital, if you like. It backfired. And so Klarna had to go back and start rehiring human beings to do the work because customer satisfaction dipped over the period where AI was used. So whilst I attempt to answer this question directly, I also want to sort of encourage our students that although the threat is real, there is also hope. It's not the first time that universities have faced challenges. It's not the first time that the labor market has faced some sort of structural challenges in terms of employment. But over time, we can work together with AI very well. We will have a future where there is technocentric as well as anthropocentric connection so that our future workers, the students that we have now, will not be left without jobs. I know there's a lot of scaremongering in society. TikTok is doing a lot of misinformation, and I know there are some sort of good information out there on TikTok and Facebook and the rest, but there is also a lot of misinformation. And a word of advice to our students would be that they are mindful of what is real and what is not real. And we can only do this through the research that we do in our universities. We will then distinguish between what is not accurate and what is accurate. And that's what schools do. That's what business schools do.
Thank you, Dr. Vic, for that. Absolutely. So industry engagements and partnerships, authentic cases are all powerful tools, I would say, where educational institutions can readapt their teaching. Professor Awad, anything else to add on that? So, the question really is how should higher education rethink their curricula, teaching methods, and so on to equip students with the skills for this emerging opportunities and challenges in AI-driven sectors?
I share Dr. Vic's views about AI and its potential and some threats maybe. There was a car manufacturer as well last week which has fired some engineers hoping that they can rely on AI, and then they couldn't, then they called them back, in fact. So there are cases now where jobs being replaced by AI and then AI is failing them. The big question is really, it's a conflict between AI and humanities. I mean, there was some talking at some stage about whether AI could destroy humanities if companies would go and replace workers and so on. There could be social unrest and the rest, but I don't think it's going to happen. When you mentioned the figures about the jobs which will disappear, Dr. Muna, and the new jobs, nobody knows what are the new jobs. We know the jobs will be maybe replaced, mainly the repetitive, automated type of task. You can just be replaced with AI for sure. The new tasks, we don't know what they are, but the most important thing is for us to design curriculum where we can help our students learn. And they have to learn on the job. And when the new job is created, this generation, once again, is a self-learning, self-taught type of generation. I bet they get most of their knowledge and information from YouTube and other social media venues, maybe. But we need to show them the way, maybe encourage them to become self-learners, independent learners, and this is really, really vital for us. AI is really important for us to have as an assistant, and we should encourage our students to use AI ethically, of course, but it's a great help. I mean, imagine when we did our PhDs and we did the literature review, it took us ages, 6 months, a year maybe. And now if you can get AI to just do it for you, do it quickly, but then you have to check it, you have to paraphrase the thing, you have to critically analyze what's being said and so on. So AI can help us. No question about it. Will help students. We should promote it. We should not be scared of using AI. We should train our this generation. They are born trained, to be honest, because they are digital generation. When we see them using ChatGPT, etc., other tools, they're much better than us. I must admit. So the digital gap now exists between the older generation and the younger one. The younger one are by default they are born digital, so they have no issues. But we should make sure that AI is a helper. AI will replace us when they start having emotional intelligence and cultural intelligence and so on. This will never do that for sure. So I think we should strike the right balance between humanity and AI.
Striking the balance, that's really the key. I want to now come back to the point you mentioned, Professor San, about future learners. And you mentioned something very interesting, which is about lifelong learning and how learning should not just be during your university time. So as lifelong learning becomes increasingly important, how can we as higher education institutions redefine and sort of demonstrate their value proposition beyond the traditional degree model?
We have to. Well, we're living in a changing world. We're dealing with a different generation. From our generation, we cannot afford to keep having the same curriculum, the same learning style, the same approach, conventional, traditional, etc. We have to embrace modern and different approaches to learning because of the nature of the current generation, which are different from ours. So when you look at the curriculum need to be designed, almost revamped now because of AI and digital technologies. The way we assess students should be changed. You cannot rely on the conventional model of assessment. You have to rely more on the problem solving, project-based type of approach, mainly presentation, doing critical analysis, not just traditional exams and traditional essays and so on. So we have to look at the total package, I think, and look at the curriculum, look at the nature of the students, look at how universities and colleges may look like, look at schools, even how school kids will be taught. Now they are dealing with Generation Alpha. We don't know, it could be different from Generation Z as well, the generation we're dealing with. But I expect that the future of higher education will be different. What we are doing at Abu Dhabi University, we're just looking at scenario planning, developing various scenarios of how the future learners would look like, how the future university may look like, and so on. We cannot afford to keep assuming that we're dealing with the same type of learners. This generation is very demanding. They are called sometimes the entitlement generation. They are entitled for the best education, best knowledge. In addition, they have instant access to information, knowledge, and so on. If you look at the way we have progressed in life, from data to information to knowledge to wisdom, now we can rely on our wisdom, and the fifth phase is intelligence with AI and the rest. We have to provide our students with the wisdom we have, but we need to understand that we are entering the phase of intelligent systems, and this will affect their way of thinking, their approach to learning.
So, Dr. Vic, building on these very strong points about the value of higher education, there's been a lot of information in the news, and specifically about higher education, that talks about NEET, NEET, which stands for people who are not in education, employment, or training. So they're not studying or working or doing any training. And experts are blaming colleges for a system of broken promises. So these are the critics. They're saying, they're questioning the value of higher education, a system of broken promise for the rising number of needs. So people not in education, employment, or training. There's some figures from the US stating that around 4.3 million people in the US are classified as needs. And I will maybe ask Professor Hassan the same question if he has anything to add. But let's hear from you first, Dr. Vic. What responsibility then do colleges, universities have in addressing the rise of people not in education, employment, or training? And how can they better align student expectations with actual career opportunities? I'm sure you know of many graduates who have the degree but are really struggling to find a job or to start their career. What's your thought on that, Dr. Vic?
Well, in comparison to the medieval times, we can all agree that there are more universities these days than there were in the 11th century, for example, when we started having formal education. We know that the first university in the world is Al-Qarawiyyin University of Morocco, which was formed around 857 by a female, by the way, followed by Bologna in Italy, Bologna University in Italy around 1088. There were few universities then, but fact of the matter is, although there were few medieval universities, they were training a very, very exclusive group of people. They were training priests and legal experts. So Bologna, for example, at the time, the emphasis on the curricula was something called trivium, which means you normally go to university and you learn logic, grammar, and rhetoric. Now, those are very essential. And Professor Aoud has mentioned that we need to understand emotional intelligence. We need to be able to communicate effectively. Historically, Bologna was teaching these ideas through what they call trivium. And then quadrivium, which is the four ways, was about arithmetic, music, geometry, and astronomy. Now, you can see that then the focus was understanding the world around us, and also sort of understanding space, which was geometry. We have moved on several thousands of years. We have more universities now, so it's inevitable that there will be some sort of unemployment in our system. But those unemployments can also be exemplified by the type of situations around us, something Professor has talked about in terms of COVID, for example, AI, technology, and now the regional crisis that we have. So I agree that there can be some people who are not in education, not in employment, and not in any form of training, something that you've already mentioned. That defines our current society. But that doesn't mean that the universities are not doing what they should be doing. Uh, Whereas medieval universities were focusing on understanding the world around us and space and God and so on and so forth, what we are faced with now is to teach students what is applicable to our current society, and that is technology, AI, medical solutions, building in green spaces, and things of that nature. So, why is then the reason that some people are not in education, they are not in employment, and they are not in training? I will partly blame this on some sort of scaremongering in our society. Stuff that you see on YouTube. People who have no background in education, they have no understanding of what Kolb's theory is about in education, for example, or Bantura's theory in psychology. They are the ones who are advising some of our current generation. So if they don't have mentors to support them, they go and listen to the stuff on YouTube and TikTok. They will then decide, I'm not going to go into education. I'm not going to get any job in some instances because the state supports them by providing benefits. So it's a very, very complicated phenomenon. But my view is we as academics need to continue encouraging the young generation or the younger generation that what they are facing is not exclusive to the 21st century. It's always been there. When the coal mine shut in England, people were structurally unemployed. They have to retrain or upskill to get new jobs. It's also the same now. But if people choose voluntarily not to engage in education, which I believe that's your question, they don't want to engage in education or join the labor force. It's something that we all need to address from the government level all the way to the universities. It doesn't help anyone where all we are creating these days is endless entertainment videos on YouTube and TikTok, most of which do not solve the societal problems of existence, sustainability, and relevance to our planet. Then we are facing a crisis. So my view would be that although our curricula would be either business, engineering, or science, we still need to do some sort of mentorship to our students to let them know that they need to stay away from what is a popular culture of don't do anything, just stay home, sleep in the day, wake up in the night, and watch some entertainment videos. Those entertainment videos don't go anywhere. They do not actually create tangible value in society other than just somebody is using AI to create fake imagery, deep fake, some sort of music, which is not their copyright, and putting it out there on TikTok, and they will get 12 million. I can guarantee you, our podcast today is not going to get as many views as those TikTok funny videos or sort of very inappropriate content that we are seeing today in our society.
Thank you, Dr. Vic. Absolutely. Social media has a big role to play, and I think governments are now taking action to ban social media for certain age groups.
Yeah.
Professor Ghassan, in your view then, are universities still delivering on their promise of transforming lives, creating opportunities, or does higher education need to now rethink how it defines and demonstrates value in today's world for the young generation?
Thank you, Dr. Mona. Thank you, Dr. Vic. I think having a degree, without any doubt, would add value. I mean, as I said before, you will have a passport in your hand. You can use it anytime you want. And Dr. Vic is absolutely right about unemployment is a universal thing now, not just in this part of the world. When we look at the resources consumed for conflicts, corruption, and the rest, if they were available for us, would have invested heavily in our jobs, in our students, and find them jobs. So there are some issues which are beyond any university. Is our job as a university to find jobs for graduates, or our job is to make sure that we are providing them with the right knowledge and they should go into the marketplace and find jobs relevant? Of course, this generation is once again completely different from ours. In my generation, engineering or medicine, choose one, not law. not art, not music. Yeah, Joe, which one do you want? Do you want an engineer or a medical doctor? My parents will not accept any other discipline. This generation, they can go and do any discipline they wanted. They choose what's really interesting for them. There may be no jobs in that particular discipline and so on. So we can guide them as much as we want. And at the end of the day, their decision that should not be influenced by us or by their parents even. They should have the passion for a particular domain or discipline. Of course, I think the most important things to know that jobs are becoming scarce. No question about it. Everybody knows globally. I think the most important thing is to inject very strong entrepreneurial skills in our graduates, encourage them to set up, incubate their businesses, set up businesses, and so on. I think it's really important for them in order to safeguard at least their position, just in case if they cannot find a job. The alternative is just to set up your own business with the right support. But still, I think higher education and big value, and the big value comes from not just the degree itself, but from the skills you have developed, the emotional intelligence skills and the digital skills, analytical skills, the critical thinking skills, and so on, which are really vital to find a job in a very, very competitive market place. AI will play a major role. We all know that, as Dr. Vic mentioned before, there are some companies are trying to replace individuals with AI agents or AI tools, and some companies will do that. There's no question about it. So there will be less jobs, maybe, unless there are new jobs. So my advice to graduates is just to be trained in the area of AI and digital transformation, because there will be jobs in this area for years to come. In fact, and for any discipline, for any specialism, the students should have competency in AI and digital skills. At Abu Dhabi University, we even changed the title of our Vice Chancellor for Administrative and Financial Affairs to Vice Chancellor for AI and Operational Excellence. We have trained almost all faculty and staff, all students, and we are giving them the right skills to survive in a very competitive environment. And that's what most universities should do. But universities will still exist. When Dr. Vic referred to the old university, I heard that there's a university in Tunisia, Zaytuna University, which was even established before Al-Qarawiyyin in Morocco, and Al-Azhar in Egypt, then Bologna and other European universities. But you can see the difference in the way universities deliver education now. We're living in a different world. If we don't accept that it's a changing world, then it's a big problem, because a changing world mainly means that you need to change your leadership style. You need to change your curriculum. You need to change the way you look at students. You need to look at empathy, not sympathy this time, and so on.
If I may just add,
yes, please.
let me just add a word of encouragement to our students and future students that while they are confused about the future, they should also look at the past and see how many successful individuals in our society, role models, have been produced through universities. I look at the data, and 8 United States presidents went to Harvard University, including JFK Kennedy, John Quincy Adams, and Barack Obama. They all went to Harvard. Out of the 58 prime ministers in the UK, 31 of them went to Oxford. 14 of them went to Cambridge. So universities still contribute vastly to society's success. And if students are confused about it, students to whom we offer our efforts as academics, they should always remember that what we are helping them to do is to improve them as a people, improve their professionalism, and also to help them to contribute to the progress of society.
Thank you, Dr. Vic, for that. We've been talking a lot about teaching and the value added to students. In our final part of this episode, we'd like to now change our attention and focus to another key pillar, which is research. Research-led teaching and the value this brings. Professor Hassan, I know you're a big believer in research and you've led many research and innovation centers. Um, what role does research play in teaching, Professor Hassan, and how do you ensure that research not only advances knowledge, but also directly enhances teaching quality and curriculum design?
Thank you for a very good question as well, Dr. Muna. I think the way we look at research now is different from the past as well. We're dealing with generation who are born as researchers, by the way. For anything you ask them to do, they go and research it properly on the net and ChatGPT or get you the answers. Our generation did not have access to such information. And even when we were doing our PhDs, if we needed a paper which didn't exist in our library, we have to go through the interlibrary loan, wait for a month to get the publication. Now, instant access to information. And a generation which at a very young age, I see students at Abu Dhabi University posting on LinkedIn because we have encouraged them to be active on LinkedIn because massive network, they can find jobs, they can promote themselves, they become more visible. And I see the undergraduate students posting on LinkedIn saying that I'm really pleased to tell you that I've had my first publication published in this journal, and they talk about it. And I'm just saying, when I was your age, I wouldn't dare talking to anyone. In fact, I'm talking to 1.2 billion users on LinkedIn and 120 million companies. So I think research, the way we look at research. I led research at the University of Salford for years,
Yes.
and I read so many. Approach was different. Now it's different. We need to do research which can feed into teaching for sure, because those students are really hungry for research finding. They want to know more about what's happening in the area, in the discipline, and they can become part of a resource because they can help you as a researcher to collect data, to help you with the data analysis and so on. They can become co-authors on your papers, which is very, very interesting at a very young age. And in the past, we assume undergraduate students, they cannot do any research. And now we're assuming undergraduate students at the age of 18, they could be a valuable resource. Of course, we have to do research, which is of value to society, to businesses. We have been doing theoretical research, which doesn't add any value. The industry has started to question what sort of research we do and why we don't create impact. Of course, measuring research impact is really, really difficult subject. Measuring the academic impact of research is easy. You can look at the quality of publication, number of citation, H index, and so on. But looking at the economic, social, environmental, quality of life impact is pretty hard. And unless we establish mechanism to measure, especially the economic impact of research, nobody will take us seriously. The government will not take us seriously. Companies will not take us seriously. So I think we need to embrace a different model to measuring impact. We need to rely on our students as well now as a good resource. Of course, I mean, setting up PhD programs and getting funded research is really important. In some parts of the world, funding research is still embryonic. In some other parts, it's very well established. The expenditure on research in some countries, if you look at South Korea, etc., 3.7, I think, percentage of the GDP on research. In our parts of the world, maybe it's improving in the UAE and other parts of the Gulf states, but in general, it's still very low in the Arab state outside the Gulf. So I think research and innovation as well, doing research which can lead to innovation, and innovation is measured through the number of patents you can produce, but then commercializing these patents as well, the amount of money you get from industry, the number of spin-out companies, and so on. So research has to be taken to the innovation stage in order to create the right impact. Also, the jobs created because of research is another measure, because I did a lot of research. I was responsible for research and innovation at the University of Salford. So I knew about all these measures, which are really, really important.
Thank you, Professor San. Dr. Vic, any added, points from your side related to the role of research from your own example in the classroom?
totally with Professor Gerson. We have to carry out impactful research, and impact would be defined through the lens of whether the research is solving society's problems. In my own research, I focus a lot more on the labor market and employability and attitudes and things like that. But when AI started around 2022, from educational point of view, I started addressing also issues relating to student use of AI in the classroom, and also our own use of AI as academics. But the fact of the matter is that it's always going to be a challenge to justify the relevance of universities to society, where today there is just too much scaremongering and too much information. I go back to my earlier point of where we are in a very, very different era, where it's very difficult to detach the truth from untruth. So that has become an issue. But I would take us back again. Most of society's problems were solved through academic research. The discovery of penicillin, although wasn't done in Oxford, it was made better in Oxford. If you think of Boeing 787, it's got 6 million components. Now, we cannot use TikTok to be scientific about those components. We have to teach students using research in the classroom. Think of all the big things around us in society. Universities have either created them or contributed to their improvement or existence in our society. So we cannot downgrade the importance of research. In my own university, University of Birmingham, we are very big on research. It's part of the Russell Group, and there's an ambition that we become the global top 50 universities in the world. We're working towards that. We've moved from 76 to about 69 now. So we are in the top 70. And that is mostly because of the research that we carry. And not just research, but quality, impactful research that addresses society's problems.
Congratulations, Dr. Vic and Dr. Mana, on the achievements of the University of Birmingham. Of course, I mean, it's a top university, and I know from the UK days. I want to add one thing, please, Dr. Mana. Even though we're
Yes,
doing research to solve some problems, when we look at the global picture, the global figures, and if we look at the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which we're not going to achieve anyway by the specified deadline, in the world, there are 2.2 billion people who don't have access to clean drinking water. 2.8 billion people don't have access to proper sanitary water. 250 million kids don't go to school. 150 million refugees caused not just by conflict, by climate change, by droughts, by floods, and so on. Some nations consume 600 liters per capita per day of water. Some other nations consume half a liter. Some nations waste 200 kilograms of food per capita per year. Some of them are in Africa. This reality, it's not just in the West and the Middle East. When you look at these figures and see the research we are doing to solve sometimes minute problems, etc., it makes us think that we need to do research which can solve some of these global. If you look at the research priorities now across the globe, they're just related to health, pandemics, climate change, IT, AI, the impact of AI on humanities, new financial models, peace and security, and so on. And we have to do research which can help us resolve issues related to businesses and society. But at the same time, if we don't solve some of these big problems facing the world, we are just only touching the tip of the iceberg.
thank you, Professor, for this. Spot on. So many problems to solve. Research is really needed in these areas. To wrap up our discussion today, we've got time for our final question. Professor Hassan, we've talked a lot about the challenges facing higher education. Let's finish on a high note. What do you see as the greatest opportunities facing higher educational institutions today?
There are plenty of opportunities, and I have a very positive view about the world in general. I think we have an exciting time to deal with a different set of learners. We have a lot of new technologies available for us we can use. There are plenty of problems we can solve. We can produce graduates who have the right skills to enter the marketplace, especially in the area of entrepreneurship, in order to make sure that those graduates can find jobs. So it's an exciting world. The world of academia is an exciting world by nature. Every day there's something different. Every day there's something new. And we are in this business to help our students. Without students, none of us will be in this business. And it's our moral, professional duty to help them. We should be student-centered. We should provide them with the best learning experience ever. We should have empathy toward them, and we should embrace their ambitions.
Professor Hassan Awad, thank you so much for being with us on this episode on the Future of Work podcast. We've learned so much from your experience. Thank you so much for sharing some of your knowledge, expertise, and wisdom with us today.
Pleasure talking to you and to Dr. Vic. Thank you, Lukman, for the kind invitation. And I really value the work of University of Birmingham in the UK and in Dubai. And with the provost, my friend, Professor Yusra, just an absolute pleasure to be contributing to this episode, which I hope that it will help our students at the end of the day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a nice day.